This meeting of the Margate Planning Board is called to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Tom Collins.
Here.
Clem Wazleski.
Here.
Rich Patterson.
Here.
Michael Cristaldi.
Here.
Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti. Craig Palmisano. Stephen Giesecke. Remy Pelosi. Joseph DiGirolamo. Ron Gruppo. Michael Richmond.
This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Tom, Mike. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Before we go any further, we need to appoint a new board administrator. Do I hear a nomination?
I'll make the nomination. We appoint Hardy. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Stand up, talk to the audience. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of decisions and resolutions. Number 31, 2019, Samara TV, Dicker. Number 32, 2019, Uri and Elise Feibush.
I'll make the motion.
Joe?
Second.
Mike? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. First case is Brad and Michelle Beidner, 113 South Essex Avenue, Block 5.01, Lot 7, located in the S40 district, seeking C variance relief for rear yard setback to decks, dormer roof pitch, front yard landscaping, and possibly others in order to construct a new single-family home. Taxes and water payments are current, and proof of advertising and notifying have been satisfied. Mr. McLaren, will you be sworn in, please?
Mr. McLaren, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you, Board Chairman and Board members. My report is based on the application of Brad and Michelle Beidner, 113 South Essex Avenue, Block 5.01, Lot 7, within the S30 zone, FEMA zone elevation 11. Based on the effective firm, the bottom of the first floor has to be 14. Zoning height begins at elevation 15. They're seeking C variances, which are substantial benefit variance. There is no hardship. The background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new flood-compliant home that requires actually 4 variances identified and requested. The home is located on the beach block of Essex Avenue on Atlantic City side of the street between the beach and Atlantic Avenue. Zoning chart is on page 1 and 2. The additional documents reviewed on page 3. The variances on section 3 on page 3 are as follows. A rear yard deck setback, whereas a minimum setback to a deck greater than 18 inches from grade is required to meet the building setback of 12.5 feet, and a setback of 9.5 feet is proposed. The same thing for the second floor deck, the same conditions, same dimensions. The second or third variance is the front yard landscaping, whereas 60% is the required minimum percentage of landscaping within the front yard setback, and 50% is the minimum, including steps, to access the first floor, and about 48% is proposed. I believe this one might be eliminated, but I'll leave that up to the testimony. And lastly, the final building slope variance, whereas the minimum roof pitch for a roof over any first floor is 5 on 12, and a 3 on 12 roof pitch is proposed for a portion of the roof. That's it. The waivers requested are submission checklist item 1A, which is a copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet of the property. We have granted this waiver in the past without any detriment to the application. Additional comments are no floor areas are shown. As a condition of approval or whatever, the floor area shall be shown on the plans. Item number 2 is my understanding that a set of revised plans reducing the variances will be an exhibit on the night of the hearing. I believe there is a set of plans being circulated. Again, the testimony will provide the basis on that. That the front yard landscaping reduction variance is a function of the wide steps within the front yard. Perhaps a reduction in the width of the steps may get that over the 50% threshold. Again, that will be up to the testimony as to why that can't be accomplished. And the waiver, as discussed, can be granted without detriment. A method of drainage for the exterior shower shall be shown on the plans when submitted for zoning approval. Consideration of storage of trash cans within the storage area of the building envelope instead of creating another structure. It's not required, but is this a suggestion? And the entry area below BFE is quite large. I don't know. Again, that's just a general comment. And that'll be all for now. Oh, one final recommendation is the city has been proactively replacing with fire hydrants throughout the city, and it looks like there's still an old one in front of the house. So maybe during the construction process, you can make sure that the city doesn't plan on putting a new one in after you're all done your landscaping. That's it.
Before we go any further, I just want to mention to the architect that we reserve the right not to accept applications without the dimensions on the plan. So from here forward, if you would put the dimensions on the plans. Thank you. Eric?
Oh, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Eric Olson on behalf of the applicants, Brad and Michelle Beidner. So before I get started, I just wanted to go through a little bit of the history of this project, because what you're seeing tonight is really the result of a lot of interaction between the Beidners, Mr. Lolio, and Mr. McLaren, and myself to try to pare down as much of the need for variance relief as possible. This is kind of an interesting lot because the front of the lot faces Essex Avenue. The rear of the lot really faces the beach off of Douglas, because as you know, the topography of the beach there juts out a little bit on Essex. The house behind the Beidners is directly oceanfront on Douglas. So you've got front of the house that's on Essex Avenue and a rear that's on the open beach, which is why we're asking for the variances for the rear yard decks, because that's an area obviously with some light air and open space and beach views that greatly benefits the proposed house. As Mr. McLaren pointed out, there is a change to the plans today, which again is a result of some conversations between Mr. Lolio, Mr. McLaren, and myself, wherein there was a lot being asked for that we thought maybe in the best case of the word fairness, we would take it off the plan because whether it's necessary or not, it really fits more into your ordinance. So what you're seeing is the right side of the house had 2 decks on the first and second levels. They've now been eliminated so that the open space beneath is completely pervious and we don't take away from our building coverage. Your ordinance says even if the obstruction is above the ground, if there's something vertically that would block something from hitting the dirt, it counts against coverage. So we eliminated that altogether, even though I think you could probably grow grass under there. But sticking to the intent of the ordinance, that's been eliminated in its entirety. Mr. Lolio will testify that by that elimination, the variance for coverage is now gone because with the stair deduction, we're still slightly under, but we're definitely not over. So having said that, I'm going to ask Mr. Lolio to be sworn and start giving the testimony about the house he designed and why the variances that we're talking about, rear yard decks, the levels that Mr. McLaren had indicated, 2 of them going to the same distance from the property line, along with the roof pitch, would be justified. So Bob, I know you've testified here in the past, but Mr. Manis has to swear you in and give your qualifications.
You just state your name and address for the record, please.
Robert Lolio, 219 Bellevue Avenue, Hamilton, New Jersey.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Bob, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
You've been practicing licensed architect for how long?
Licensed architect for a little over 5 years.
You've appeared before this board on several occasions, more than several?
Correct.
We accept his qualifications.
Mr.
He's been here a lot.
Okay. Bob, let's walk us through the house you designed. Noting, of course, Mr. McCarty commented about the entryway has a large space below BFD. That's something, by the way, that to the extent the board requires it, and I think you do in this case, a non-conversion agreement will have to be on file with the county clerk so that none of that space below the BFE will be converted to living space, which Mr. Galantino always requires us to do before we get a CO, so we'll take care of that. So walk us through, Bob, the plan as well as the variances and distances to the rear yard with those two decks.
And Eric, I don't want to interrupt you. I'll just note A1, because I know you submitted some revised plans. I'll just say that the revised plans are, I think they're dated 10/21 is the revision date. So I'll just mark those as A1 for the record.
Thank you. And the only change, just for the record as well on those plans, is the elimination of that deck.
Correct.
Or the two decks, the vertical structure. All right. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, so the proposed home is a 2.5-story residence over ground floor parking level, storage, and entry. The entry vestibule that was considered quite large is really a secondary entry just off the garage. A lot of it will be used for storage. And then the garage is to the ocean side, the right-hand side of the home, facing Essex Avenue. The main entry is to the left side of the house, where you have a half level of steps up to a porch. And then once you enter the house, you're going to go up another half level to the main, to the first floor. So the main entrance is really the left side of the house above flood, and the entry below is just a secondary entrance for coming in and out from the garage. The next level is the main kitchen, dining, living level, and then the second floor is where is the bedroom level, and then the third floor is the master bedroom suite. It's a whole floor dedicated to the master suite.
And just so we're clear, because it's important to the board, I'm sure, the third floor, we've been very careful that that space is not going to be more than 50% of the floor below it, correct?
Correct.
And there's no room for expansion or other kind of ways that we could otherwise get more space out of that after a CO is issued, correct?
Correct, because the floor below will have vaulted ceilings on the right-hand side of the house, so that won't be attic space. It'll be mostly vaulted, high ceilings on the floor below.
Okay. And then obviously, a house like this, beachfront on the rear, Bidners wish to take advantage of a little bit of additional deck space and wanted to widen the decks to the extent possible, correct?
Correct.
And as part of that discussion you had with the Bidners, they thought it might be appropriate to push back just a little bit towards the Douglas Avenue side of the beach, correct?
Correct.
And that's ultimately what you designed, correct?
Correct.
And how far of a distance from the property line to the outside edge of the decks is being proposed tonight?
Supposed to be 9.5 feet, or 12.5 is required.
So each deck would be 3 feet wider than otherwise allowed, correct?
Correct. The top, the master bedroom deck, it does not encroach the extra 3 feet. It's within the setback.
Okay, so we're talking about the decks that are on top of each other stacked in the backyard, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, in addition to that deck, Mr. McLaurin pointed out that there is a roof pitch variance, but explain to the board what portion of the house the roof pitch variance represents, and go through, if you will, the other portions of the roof which are 5 on 12 or greater.
The 3.5 on 12 pitch is the portion of the roof that covers the master bedroom suite down the center of the house. The roofs to the right and left of this massing are greater than 5 on 12, except the stair tower is also, it's 3.5 on 12. So mostly about 50% of the roof is over 512, and I say 50% is just, it's 3.5 on 12.
And what was the purpose of having that slightly lessened roof pitch on that area of the house?
It's a difference of 9 inches in the wall plate of the ceiling height on the master bedroom.
Okay.
From 7'4" to 8 foot ceilings.
How big's the ceilings on first and second, third floor?
The main kitchen, dining, living level is 9 foot, the bedrooms are 8 foot, and under the house is 8 foot also.
No, and the third floor?
The third floor, as proposed with the 3.5 on 12, is 8 foot ceilings.
So this isn't an attempt in the board on the, ways to get around these designs. This isn't some way to otherwise get a 10, 11, or 12-foot ceiling. The ceiling heights are fairly modest based on where it's located, almost on the beach, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So is the third floor ceiling cantilever, vaulted?
No, the wall plate's 8 foot and the ceilings are flat at 8 foot. A lot of times you see them start at 7 and vault to 8 on the third floor, but we were trying to get the extra headroom since it's the master.
Right. But if you vaulted it, then you'd actually have more height towards the center of it.
Well, you would only have 8 foot in the middle portion, probably like 3 or 4 foot wide down the center of the bedroom.
Is that why you made a 3.5 inch pitch so you can get the 8 foot on the outside edges?
Yes, I took the 8 foot wall plate.
That's why,
That's the slope that
that's
winds
why
up-
we need the 3.5 foot for 12.
Correct. It's still under the building height of 30 feet from the first floor, but, and the room's not incredibly large for a master, so I just took that pitch down to an 8 foot wall plate, and that became the width of the bedroom.
I have a question on the deck. On A2, on A2, the paper, on the first floor plan, you show the staircase in the rear. How large is the deck at the largest point?
Thomas Allen say large.
The length that goes back towards the living room,
It was,
without that 3 feet that you're asking for. I'd like to know what the deck
I
size
believe
is
it's
without
18
that
feet.
extra 3 feet that you want. What is it?
I believe it's 18 feet. It would've been-
18 feet at that largest point.
Correct.
And over by the kitchen wall to the staircase, what would that be?
Including the encroachment,
No,
Not including the staircase.
not including the staircase? From here to,
Looks like about 8 feet or
yeah, it's
something.
about 8 feet.
And you want another 3 on top of that 18.
Well, the stairs are allowed to encroach into the rear yard setback.
So if you didn't get that 3 feet, you would have a landing there
I would have
off of
a
that.
lan-
You would have a landing and then go down the
I'd
steps.
have a 5 foot landing and go down the steps.
And when I look at the A4, the deck protrudes out the rear of the house. On A4, the right elevation,
Yeah, we're not bringing any support down, it's just we're
But they-
cantilevering the deck.
the cantilever deck protrudes 3 feet towards the other neighbor's property, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's,
You didn't have the 3 feet on the second floor back out. What would be the dimensions? It looks like it
Would be
would go right to
eight-
the corner of the building, right?
It would be 15 feet,
Uh,
approximately 15 feet.
No, the second floor.
The second floor? Which one do you consider the second floor, the bedroom level?
Bedroom to deck.
Second floor?
yeah, one that says
That would be about 9 foot,
9 foot.
yeah.
By what? Not-
13.
9 by 13.
And that deck there, you have unobstructed views all the way to Atlantic City, is that correct?
Well, no. No, there's a house directly behind Mr. Palmisano.
it's not beachfront.
I know you're not.
You'll have ocean views, but Atlantic City might be a little tough the way the house is.
When I,
Where I stood. Is the house being moved towards the ocean from where it exists now?
When you say, I'm sorry, Mr. Pat, I don't understand.
The existing house now, is the new house being moved towards the ocean?
Be slightly closer, yeah,
there's an existing driveway there now,
right,
a large driveway on the right side of the house now.
correct.
Eric, you mentioned the decks on this revised set of plans are reduced from what the original plan showed. I
No,
can't see
not
a
the
difference.
decks, Mr. Waleski, the decks are the same.
It's the front,
It's
the front yard deck.
deck. The front deck's eliminated in its entirety.
Just the front,
That gets below
the
the,
street side.
correct.
We did that to omit the need for a variance for front yard landscaping.
So it'll comply with front yard landscaping completely.
These decks here?
The ones on the right,
There were decks above the garage.
they're no.
Oh, I see what you're,
that went-
okay,
So we
okay.
had full decks
Got
across
it.
the whole width of the house.
Got it.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Biden are here, and there's a point that fairly important to bring up, which is, upon Mr. Lolio preparing the plans, the Bidens went and spoke to their neighbors directly behind them, the Brunos. You may recall they were here before the board 3 years ago on a similar application. Based upon the spirit of goodwill and neighborly relations, Brad and Michelle thought it would be nice to talk to them and say, look, we objected to your case, but we want to know what your feelings are about ours. They were able to come to a resolution where there was no objection, and the Brunos were kind enough to say that if the Bidens came in, regardless of what the board says yay or no, yes or no to, the Brunos do not object. They're not here. They've sent the Bidens a nice email. They were represented by counsel. I don't know if they are anymore, but my discussions with Mr. Balanson, who was representing them, he indicated that they don't have any further objection. And, you know, once in a while, the neighbors can work things out among themselves, which is pretty nice. And Brad and Michelle took a fair amount of time, and again, they were very proactive in talking to the neighbors about what they wanted to do. You'll note, perhaps it's on one of your plans, originally there was also a fairly large pool, which also had a large overhang over the pool. That was eliminated in its entirety through discussions with Mr. McLaren and Mr. Lolio. We thought it just was a little bit too much. So what you're seeing is the result of a number of scaled-down plans. And we're very cognizant of the fact that the board doesn't want to have us come in with this worst-case scenario and then start chipping away at that. And Roger was pretty helpful, basically chipping away at that before we even got here. So the result of the plan you have in front of you, no overhang over the pool, no pool at all, that was a bit of a concern of the Brunos behind, and obviously no Brunos because the Bidens were able to make a fairly nice makeup with them over the course of the past 5 or 6 months in designing their house. And Michelle and Brad are here to testify to that to the extent necessary.
Can I throw a little thing in here? Would you be happy with going with a height variance than the 3.5 pitch? Because you're only going up 14 inches if you change it to the 5.
It's about a 9-inch difference. 'cause
It's,
3.5.
yeah, like, I came up with the 6.6, trying to figure these numbers you have here. And with the 6.6 adding 2.5 inches, it's about 14-inch difference. So it'd be like a 14-inch variance for on a roof height, rather than the 5 pitch changing.
Which would still be a
It's not
C
D,
variance.
right, it's still a C, because it's less than 10% of the
Yeah.
height.
Did you
Right,
say
you're
9
not,
inches,
you're
Mr.
just
Lolio?
trading variances.
Did you say it only goes up
I don't
9
know,
inches
but
if you
it's-
meet the roof pitch?
About I would say it's between 9 and 10-inch difference in the roof height.
Yeah, Tom, John, Mike wants to keep the 5-12 pitch roof.
I understand what Mike wants, but if I had already, my point of this is that if we make every roof in Margate 5 and 12 pitch, we're gonna have a Ocean
We're
City.
gonna make them 5 and above.
Well, it's gonna be like an Ocean City, so an occasional house like this beautiful house with a smaller pitch really doesn't bother me.
not gonna change the
But
house one
if you
bit.
raise it, am I talking, Mike?
Hey.
What are you?
Sorry.
I'm
Go ahead.
So if you raise this and it's 9 or 10 inches, that's really gonna screw everything. It's gonna screw your stairs up.
Well, it's just the third floor roof that would, the roof pitch would become.
You're just gonna raise the roof pitch and leave
The
everything else
pitch
the
would go
same.
like from.
Just
Yeah.
same house.
But,
What about the neighbors to the left?
you know, but now you're raising the house up. I think
we have
the
an answer
lower
to that.
pitch is very acceptable to me. I think it looks better,
We're proposing a metal roof, which is meant for low slope.
lower pitch, right? And it's gonna look pretty. So I don't see a big deal with it. And instead of giving away height variances,
Well, plus, you know,
it's a minor.
they've already had the conversation with the neighbors next door.
Right.
Based on what is being presented tonight. So all of a sudden, the next day, the neighbors say, oh, you raised your roof like another.
You're going
Well,
up.
and in addition to that, Mr. Richmond, they
Right.
spoke to the neighbors next door. I know that Ms. Gubernolti referenced that. They we're fairly proactive with the neighborhood in general, so to the extent we have questions about the neighbor next door, Brad and Michelle also spoke to them and showed them the plans, and
But that was not the plan if you decided to, quote unquote, bring variances. They don't know that.
ideally, they'd like the house, look, Mr. Lolio spent a lot of time on this, so ideally, this is the product they came up with, which they'd like to go with, but, ceiling heights on a master bedroom are fairly important.
Leave this and bring this.
I agree.
So, Eric, are the neighbors to the left will look at
This one's exempt.
Yeah.
This is over.
Well, Michelle, why don't you, we have to get sworn, so Mr. Manos has a clear record. So, she's been waiting to testify all day.
Okay,
sorry.
before they do that, you have the 312 pitch down the center. You also have a 312 pitch over the staircase. Why can't that be cut down? That doesn't hit anything.
Well, I need a 8-foot clearance for an elevator. It's a stair and elevator tower.
Okay. So you can't.
I could adjust the roof line, but we were trying to go for a simple roof line. There'd be,
Well,
the elevator is allowed to bump up.
And you don't at all?
I was trying to keep the ceiling consistent at 8 foot.
So you don't bump up at all in the elevator?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Now, that was
Okay.
another thing, Mr. Patterson.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That answers that question.
All right, Michelle. Come on.
You can just come up and state your name and address. I'll swear you in real quick.
Michelle Beidner, 113 South Essex.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so, you'll come to the mic, Michelle. So, obviously, you've been designing this house with Mr. Lolio for quite some time. We've been over a number of the plans, and you've spoken to your neighbors. So, just explain to the board how we got here and what you're attempting to do, and hopefully your plans to be down here full-time. And it's important to
Well,
put a
that we
name and
are.
face.
I mean, we have one daughter who's a freshman at college, another son who's a junior in high school. So we'll be empty nesters soon, and it is our plan to move down here almost full year. That's what we've wanted to do for a long time. So the house that we've designed is a house that we see ourselves living in, not just coming down on weekends. And I think that's also why we were looking at for the higher roof pitch also in the master, because we're going to be there a lot. And most of our time that we're spending, I don't know if anyone actually saw our house, right now we have an incredible deck that goes around, and we spend so much time pretty much in the back corner where we can see the beach. And that is why we designed the house where we took a lot of our living space away to make the deck, and squeeze the bedrooms into the other floor.
Now, let's talk about the Brunos, because obviously,
So the
They were
Brunos, as
living-
well as our other neighbors to our left, our neighbors to our left, we showed them the plans as well. They came over, we gave them a tour, explained where everything was going to be, if the decks were going out further, how they would be able to see, and they were fine with it. The daughter also came because I think she's going to be getting the house, and she and her husband wanted to see everything. So they were fine
And-
with it, and the Brunos we spoke to as well, and
you heard me discuss with the board the various stages of this plan. And there was a plan that even I thought was a little bit much, that we said we're not gonna do. And on that plan, we were talking about this, you wanted a pool, you wanted a larger overhang, there were some things, and when we spoke to Mr. McLarnin,
Right.
and we spoke to the, other people that we discussed this with, some of that was just a no-go, because
And
even
also,
though you
Mr.
wanted it,
Bruno was concerned a little bit about a pool, too. He wasn't thrilled. There was a pool, a big pool to his side, and then a pool to his back, and they have kids. And so that was another factor that made him feel a little better that we weren't going to have a pool, a big pool right there that wouldn't always be covered for the grandchildren who live with him.
and that pool's been eliminated.
Yes.
And we discussed the fact that, Bob designed a beautiful house, version 1, but just because you wanted something doesn't mean that you get it. We have to fall within the certain ordinances of the city, and now we're down to what we believe, what you and Brad believe, is the final plan, which works, but you do want some additional outdoor space, correct?
We do. I mean, I know that back deck, you asked how large it is, and I know it is large, but that is where we're going to be spending a lot of our time.
Now, this is fairly important. I'm
It-
sure the board will
it's-
understand this, too. You used to have an unobstructed view of the water. The dunes came and
Yes.
took all that away.
Yes.
So now, even though your house is being built with nice new decks, your angle of vision is much different than it used to be, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
And you had a pump station, and you had an access to the rear, which at one point was fairly beautiful, that now is
Yeah.
blocked by dunes and water that pools there, correct?
Yes, we have no view now. Exactly.
When you're up higher, you have a view, but on the lower level, you don't.
No, no.
So would it be fair to say that you've been adversely impacted, as all of us have, by the construction of the dunes, specifically your views that you used to have straight through?
The new house on the first floor has no view, or the current house you're in has no view?
Current.
The current house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because your new one should
The
have
new
a view
one,
from all
yes.
3 floors, yeah.
The new one will,
But that's the
yes.
goal, to make sure that your views are maintained. We don't know
Exactly.
what the DEP is gonna do over time. No one ever thought we'd have dunes there, so this is something that you're gonna, as you said, keep forever. Okay,
Yes.
unless the board has questions, I have none.
Yes.
We have no further testimony, Mr. Chairman, unless the board has further questions for Mr. or Mrs. Biden or Mr. Lolio.
Anything else from the board? Anyone here from the public like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any further discussion, comments from the board? You have enough to read to make
I
a
do.
motion?
You're okay with everything in Mr. McLaren's report?
I am, and we've gone over this a number of times, and it's fairly thorough. The conditions were good.
If there's no further discussion, someone needs to make a motion for C variance relief for the following. Rear yard setback to the deck of the first floor deck and the second floor deck. Are they both at 9.5 feet?
Yeah.
Of 9.5 feet where 12.5 feet is required. The front yard landscaping they're going to comply with, so that's not a variance. And for the building roof slope, they're proposing a 312 roof pitch over the portions that they represented, where 512 is required. The conditions will be that they'll provide a non-conversion agreement for all space below BFE. They'll verify with the city about the fire hydrant.
I just have one question to ask the board. Are they okay with the testimony, with the positive and negative criteria? I didn't really hear the negative criteria.
Go ahead now before he finishes.
Perhaps that's not a bad idea. Mr. Lolio, you testified, and I think I cut you off, so it's my fault. In your professional opinion as a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, do you see any negatives associated with the granting of these variances that would otherwise have a bad impact on the New Jersey municipal land use law or Margate zoning code?
I do not.
And to the extent there could possibly be any negatives, do you believe that the positives would greatly outweigh any negatives, so that to the extent there was a question about the granting of these variances, your professional opinion is that the positives would outweigh the negatives?
I believe the positives would outweigh the negatives.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McLaren. I apologize.
It's okay.
Got
Just
away.
want to get it on record.
Sure.
All right, so the motion is going to be for C variance relief for the following. I'll state them again. Rear yard setback to the first floor deck of 9.5 feet where 12.5 feet is required. Same variance for the second floor deck. And for the building roof slope, they're requesting a 312 roof pitch in certain areas where 512 is required. There's also a waiver for the submission of an area map showing all properties within 200 feet. And the conditions, again, they'll verify with the city about the fire hydrant, and they'll provide for a non-conversion agreement for all space below VFB, and they'll comply with any other conditions in Mr. McLaren's report dated October 21st, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Vote,
Roll
Tom?
call.
Oh.
Yes.
Tom Collins,
I vote in favor of the application. I think what I saw there and what you're going to have is going to be a tremendous difference. And I really give you a lot of credit for the work that you put in, because I can see it here with your architect. This is going to be a fantastic house on the beach block. I see no negative impact on the neighborhood. I like the fact that you're changing the roof pitch a little, just to give us a little bit of a difference in Margate. It's nice to have something different. You're going to greatly improve the neighborhood. I just wish the monstrosity in front of you would get finished, so you wouldn't have all the trouble it must be going through with that. Hopefully that'll get resolved, but I wish you a lot of luck, and I vote in favor.
Clem Wozlowski,
As far as the rear decks are concerned, I think both of them would be perfectly functional without having the projection that the variance request requires. And as to the roof pitch, one of the reasons we have the 512 in the ordinance is to reduce the mass of the buildings. And this works contrary to that. I haven't heard any valid justification for either one of them. I think the plan would work with minor changes and variances wouldn't be required. And my understanding of principles of variance, that none should be granted where only the purposes of the owner are advanced. I have to vote no on the application.
Rich Patterson.
This is a tremendously better plan than what I saw months ago. I don't like the roof pitch, but a 9-foot first floor is pretty standard now. As Mr. Goldstein knows, we had an application with 12-foot and 10 feet asking for a variance. I don't see that here. And the fact that that roof goes over the elevator and can't be lowered, I have no problem with it. But I have the same problem Mr. Wesleski has with the rear decks. You have sufficient, nice, big deck space there. I think whatever you build, you're going to be pleasantly surprised, because I stood where I measured the decks to be, and I had a really good view of Atlantic City. That house hardly had stayed in front of you at all. But I can't vote for that large deck. I vote no.
Mike Cristaldi.
I've got no problem with the front yard. I have no problem with the decks, but I do have a problem with the roof. The 3.5 at the height of the house is going to look like a flat roof, no matter which way you look at it. I have to vote no against the 3.5.
Jim Galantino.
That's what my thought was. I mean, are we gonna see plans coming in now with more 3.5 feet? Because everybody wants to stick an 8-foot roof up, an 8-foot ceiling height up there? I mean, I was gonna make a point during the testimony, to say, hey, why are we giving up the 8, now we're gonna make an 8-foot ceiling? That concerns me a lot. I don't wanna see the 512 pitch go away. And I think the whole intent of that was to keep that in the ordinance, and I wanna stand firm. I'm gonna vote no.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I thank you for the concessions you made from the first plan that we originally were presented with, because there were a lot of positive changes. The roof slope, I understand we do want to stay with the 512s. Based upon the location of the home, which is second from the beachfront and what's being built in front of it, as well as the landscape of the street completely changing, I think it fits into the neighborhood, as well as an 8-foot third floor ceiling, I don't find excessive. The decks, I was thinking were excessive, but because the neighbors are aware of it and are okay with it and don't feel that it's blocking their view, I don't see any negative impact. So I'm going to vote in favor of the application.
Michael Richmond.
Most of the homes surrounding the neighborhood are new construction, so it's not like, you're going to extend the decks and then later on people are going to be adversely affected by that because the houses are already built. So I really didn't have a problem with the deck, but after hearing the testimony, I guess from Mr. Cristaldi on the 3.5-foot pitch at that height, making it look like a flat roof. I built a lot of third floor homes in Margate, and and the master suite's on the third floor, and the plate height is at maybe 7 feet, and then it goes up, and you have like a cathedral ceiling, so. I'm gonna have to vote no.
Application fails 2-5.
Now, just by way of clarification during the vote, and it's my fault for not bringing this up earlier, Bob Lolio and Mr. and Mrs. Bidner said they didn't care about the pitch roof. Would it be possible to have a revote with the pitch being 512, everything else being the same? I know this board has done that in the past when the vote wasn't broken up initially. So had we broken that out, they still want everything else, but the roof pitch would be compliant at 512.
Would the ridge be going up, or would the eaves be
No,
coming down?
it would be 512. They'll figure out how to make it work.
I mean, it's the board's discretion. It's your discretion. There's two ways to do it. Make them come back with an application that just makes a 512 roof pitch, and we just hear on the deck. Or, the law says if the board made a mistake in its voting or failed to consider something, the board has some discretion if they want to reconsider it now. So, I don't know. At the very least, there should be some discussion on that before we take a revote.
I see
Well,
no
we could-
problem with revoting this.
Well, that's not the question. The question is, do you see a problem with it? I still have a problem with the deck. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it. So, I mean,
I do too.
we'll take another vote with just the deck. Everything else is gone, right? The front
Correct.
landscape is gone?
Correct.
We'll take another vote with just the deck.
So it's going to be a revote. The roof pitch is going to comply. The variance is going to be it's just going to be for the decks. From the 9.5 setback to the decks where 12.5 feet is required. Same waiver, same conditions.
Tom Collins,
Someone should make the motion in a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mike, second.
But I don't understand what we're voting on.
Should we make a motion to revote?
We can do that, too. I mean, all right, here's where we stand. The application's failed. The applicant's saying that they'll make the roof pitch comply. It'll be a 512 roof pitch. They want the deck at 9.5 feet where 12.5 feet is required.
So you're removing the deck variance also?
The deck variance is
we're
the
only
only one that is going to remain.
Voting on the two decks, they want 3 feet more.
So we're only voting on the decks?
Yes.
So
Everything else went away.
Roger made a suggestion that we first vote on whether we should revote it at all. And if
I thought it was my choice.
well, it's the board's discretion, so
Oh, okay.
you can make that decision unilaterally if you want to put it to the
No,
board.
I want to do what's right.
We can,
So if we need a motion, I'm fine with a motion.
so let's do a motion to hear a revote on just the deck variances, and then a second on that, whether you want to even reconsider the matter.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
No. Opposed? No.
So now the motion is on the revote, it's just the rear deck setbacks. And the same conditions and the same waiver apply. The roof will comply, the roof pitch will comply.
Make that motion again, Tom.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Now call the vote.
Tom Collins,
I approve based on all the reasons I gave on the first pass.
Clem Wasleski,
My objection to the decks still stand. I vote no.
Rich Patterson,
Same as Clem, I vote no.
Mike Cristaldi,
I hate to see this thing not go through. It's a good-looking house. You did a good job on that. You changed the roof, and I was okay with the decks before. I'm still okay. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino,
I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty,
I vote yes.
Mike Richmond.
I vote yes.
Okay. Application passes 5-2.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Next case is Jason and Amanda Hohenstein, 202 North Adams Avenue, Block 428, Lot 82.02, located in the MF District, seeking C, variance relief for front yard setback and possibly others, in order to construct a new single-family home. Taxes and water payments are current, and proof of advertising and notifying has been satisfied. Mr. McLarnon?
Thank you, Chairman, board members. This application has a history to it where this property's been questioned for probably about 3 years. So here we are. We tried to get around coming here, but it had to come here. So the application, my report is based on the application of Luke and, whoops, hold on. Application of Jason and Amanda Hohenstein at 202 North Adams Avenue, Block 428, Lot 82.02, which is in the MF zone. Elevation 9 per the effective firm, so 12 feet to the bottom of the floor. Zoning height is based on BFE plus 4, and 30 off of 13. Application is deemed complete. This is a hardship variance plus a substantial benefit variance. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new flood-compliant single-family dwelling with variances being requested for items addressed below. The existing structure is to be raised. The site is located within the MF or multifamily zone. The proposed use is a one-family, and therefore single-family zoning rules apply as per Schedule B1. The hardship exists from the requirements of the corner lot having 2 front yards, and having to comply with the prevailing setbacks on 2 different streets. The S30 zoning was contrasted with the MF zoning to develop the zoning analysis. The chart is on page 2. As you can see, there are 3 sections highlighted. The chart continues on page 3. Section 2 indicates the documents reviewed. Section 3 on page 4 lists the variances required. The front yard setback, building on Monmouth Avenue, whereas the prevailing front yard setback is 23.2 feet, 5.2 feet existed, and 9.5 feet is proposed. The front yard setback for the porch along Adams Avenue, whereas the prevailing front yard setback is 14.4 feet, 4.9 feet exists, and 9.08 feet is proposed. Front yard setback on the porch or the building on Adams Avenue, whereas the prevailing front yard setback is 14.4 feet, 4.9 feet exists, and again, 9.08 feet is proposed. No waivers have been requested. My comments are as follows. The area is within the MF zoning district, but the proposal really resembles a TF or actually the S30 zone based on lot area. The property is a corner property and has 2 front yards and is subject to the prevailing setback for both Adams Avenue and for Monmouth Avenue. The subject property is part of a past subdivision which pretty much cut the same size lot along Monmouth Avenue into 2. The properties along Monmouth Avenue are twice as deep as the subject property and have deep front yard setbacks. The properties along Adams Avenue are much deeper than the subject property and also have deeper front yard setbacks. Schedule B1 states under front yard setbacks, porches or decks behind the front wall of a house shall not be included in the calculation. Therefore, it may be concluded that the only lot to be included in front yard calculations along Monmouth Avenue is Lot 21, which is 7.3 feet setback for the porch. Therefore, front yard setback variance for the porch along Monmouth Avenue is not required. They requested a variance for that, but by definition, one is not required. The prevailing front yard setbacks for both fronts for the buildings require setback variances. Again, because this resembles a single family, the lot width, the combined side yard setbacks are based on the 37% of the lot width for the combined side yard setbacks. Therefore, the combined side yards are being met. Building coverage for this lot is also based on the 30% or S30 zone, and that is being met. All the front yard landscaping and total landscaping requirements are being met. Planting strip is shown to contain 2 trees which are in compliance with the master plan. Actually, there'll be 4 trees, 2 on each side. That concludes my report at this time.
Thank you, Ms. McLaurin. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Olstein on behalf of the applicants, Jason and Amanda Hohenstein. What we've got here, and Mr. Barnhart will certainly testify, is really a classic hardship variance case, because but for the location of the lot, really has 2 fronts, causing it to be pushed back if we were to comply with the zoning code, to have a house that really wasn't usable. So we're looking for the variances for front yard to the building on both sides and to the porch on Adams, because there's really no other way to design this house that wouldn't make it a little bit odd to be pushed back in the corner of the lot. This property is in an area of town that you all know floods fairly badly, and I think the BFE at the street there is just over 4. So the applicants are pretty proactive about designing a house. It's going to take the existing property out of floods, harm's way. There'll be no flooding there. It's a multifamily house, a multifamily zone with a single-family house. So you have a decreased density by the construction of this new property, and there really isn't anything negative associated with this, as John will testify to. So, John, if you don't mind, please be sworn in, and we'll ask the board to accept your qualifications.
Sure. Name and address, please.
John Barnhart, office address 400 North Dover Avenue, Atlantic City.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Barnhart, you've testified before this board on numerous occasions. I would ask the board to accept your qualifications as a professional licensed engineer, professional planner, so you can testify.
Yes, we do.
Patterson, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, John, if you don't mind, just walk us through the plan, please, what's proposed and the basis for the variances due to the fact that it's on the corner and it's a small lot.
Sure. As Eric pointed out, the property is right on the corner of Adams Avenue and Monmouth Avenue. It is a conforming lot with regard to the S25 standards. It's 62.5 feet deep off of Monmouth Avenue, and it is 50 feet deep off of Adams Avenue. It does lie in the in the multifamily zone. The house that exists on the property has a number of nonconformities with regard to front yard setback, landscaping, front yard setback on both streets, in fact. The proposal is to demolish the existing home and to develop a new home on the lot. When we were brought in to help assist with the project, the goal was to meet the zoning requirements in all the way around, if possible. And you can see by the request, they have met setbacks on the side, setbacks in the rear, all the building coverage requirements, all the landscaping requirements, the building height requirement. They've met everything but for one thing, and that is the front yard setbacks on both Adams and Monmouth Avenue. We have what we believe, as Eric already said, what would be considered a classic type of C1 hardship variance with this application. And the reason that we believe that to be the case is because if you look at the definition of a C1 hardship, there's a specific criteria that discusses that you have a unique circumstance surrounding a specific piece of property or a unique condition. What we have here is we have a corner lot, but if you look along Monmouth Avenue and you look along Adams Avenue, what you see is, except for the lot immediately adjacent to us, the properties that come into play with the calculation of our average front yard setback are 125 feet deep along Monmouth, and they're 125 feet deep along Adams Avenue. So as those properties were developed, they were able to set their homes back a little further because they had that lot depth. So what that did is it created a scenario where when we create the average as required by ordinance for both Monmouth and Adams Avenue, those averages become very, very large. And when you try to apply them to a lot that is not in character with the other lots in the neighborhood, it becomes, we believe, a true hardship.
John,
Yes.
if you had no variances, how big would the house be? How much would you have to cut off that house?
If we had no variances, well, you can see the red dashed line? That's the front yard, that red dashed line I have drawn on here.
Okay.
is the front yard setback required of Monmouth and Adams.
Got it.
I think the footprint would be less than 700 square feet.
Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that on the record,
Yeah,
yes.
I was going to get to that, but thanks for.
You need all the help you can get. so.
Thanks, Rich. So this is a case where we truly believe this, we are dealing with a C1 hardship type of application. That establishes the positive side of a variance. With regard to the negative criteria for a C1, is there substantial detriment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance? I would say that there is not, because of the fact that we're meeting all the other standards on the lot. We have a conforming lot, so trying to justify other variances with regard to coverage, building coverage, height, and things becomes difficult. But we meet all of those other conditions, so we believe that we do not have a substantial negative impact, or that substantial detriment to the zone plan or the zoning ordinance. Furthermore, we are eliminating a building that has a number of existing nonconformities, is non-flood compliant. So we believe that, again, we do not have a substantial impact to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. With regard to the public good, and is there a substantial detriment to the public good, we believe that this is an application where there's really only a benefit here. We're tearing down a house that's dated, it's kind of not in character with the size, scope, and scale of the houses around it. They're building a brand-new home, doing everything they can to try to comply with the ordinances that are in place. The house will be obviously fully flood compliant, and it is consistent with the house immediately adjacent to us with regard to setback. You know, the only other lot that is similar in size is immediately adjacent to this property on Adams Avenue. Unfortunately, that doesn't get calculated into the average because it's the closest one to the street, so it drops out of the calculation. But it is very consistent with the setbacks to the property immediately adjacent to us. And I do also want to point out, it is the setbacks that are being requested on both Monmouth and Adams Avenue are nearly twice the minimum. As you know, when you have your minimum requirement for front yard setback is 5 feet, we are proposing 9.5 feet on Monmouth and 9.08 feet on Adams Avenue. So we are well in excess of the minimum. So we think by doing so, we are preserving air, light, and open space. Roger pointed out the fact that we could discuss a C2 type of application here where the benefits outweigh the detriments. I think I've already kind of put those proofs on the record that C2 does apply because we are demolishing a non-conforming house and bringing the property much more into conformity than the existing condition.
And we mentioned that this is in a multifamily zone, but it's a single, so you're going to have less bedrooms, less problems for parking. Doesn't seem to be anything that would be negative associated with the application, correct?
That's correct.
The applicants are here if the board has questions. Otherwise, it seems like Mr. Barnhart pretty much has done it all, and we would
Board have any
rest.
questions?
Yeah, I have a question. On the driveways, on the plot plan, in front of the garage door, it shows 9 feet to the porch on the plot plan. And how far is it to the building? For that parking space in front of the garage door. I know it's not counted as a parking space.
Correct. It's not currently being counted as a parking space.
15
But,
foot.
but it will be used as one, is my point.
Greg, it's 15 foot.
It's 15, right? 15.
Yeah, the porch is 6 feet.
It's
so
15 foot.
15, correct.
It's 15 foot there. My concern is cars pulling into it and sticking off of the sidewalks and using it as a parking space.
Okay.
I would love to see that garage door moved in 3 feet.
That's actually another variance.
It's what?
That's supposed to be 18 feet.
That's supposed to be 18 feet?
Yes.
So that means the garage door has to move in 3 feet.
Okay. Roger, even if you're not counting it as a parking space?
Yes, because it's going to be used as a parking space.
I know.
Can you give us 1 second?
You just have to put the garage door in a couple of feet.
3 feet.
We will make it comply to the 18 feet.
The 6-foot fence is going to go down along the back, I guess. Does that go all the way out to almost the sidewalk line?
18.
So it's running along that northwest side. You got a 6-foot fence right there. And then it transitions to a 4.
That's a variance, Eric.
Yeah, that's gonna
Make it 5 foot.
Eric? 5 foot.
Actually, that's the typo on the plan. It's intended to be a 5-foot fence. We're not asking for a fence variance. And it will be tapered down as required by ordinance. We're not asking for any fence variances.
It can't be in the front yard at all.
Correct.
Is it shown in the front yard?
Yes.
What was the answer
It's
on the
shown in the
garage?
front yard.
What was the answer on the garage door?
We're gonna push the garage door back to comply to the 18 feet
From the
from the property line.
property line, thank you.
Correct.
And the fence will not protrude further than the house?
No front yard fence.
Correct.
It shows on the plan that it does.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's.
You'll fix that.
Well, yes, we are
Okay.
not gonna, we are not asking for any fence
All right,
variances.
I was talking about the height before, so this is.
Correct.
Okay, just want to be clear.
So you now have 4 correct?
Yes, there'll be one in the garage, one in front of the garage, and 2 next door.
So that'll cover this third floor bedroom that you're pulling off. That's all that's.
So in the event that the demolition, they disturb any of that corner handicap ramp, would you put it back? At a condition, you put it back?
He's required to, yes.
Yes.
Anything else? Anyone from the public have any comments, questions? Mr. Bailison? Oh, okay. Public portion is closed. Would you read the motion, please?
Someone needs to make a motion for C variance relief for the following: a front yard setback to the building along Monmouth Avenue of 9.5 feet, where 23.2 feet is the prevailing. A front yard setback to the porch along Adams Avenue of 9.08 feet, where 14.4 feet is the prevailing setback. Front yard setback to the building along Adams Avenue of 9.08 feet, where 14.4 feet is the prevailing setback. The conditions will be that the applicant will push the garage back so that it's 18 feet from the property line, and the fence will comply. There's no fence variance, so it'll comply in terms of permitted height, and it won't be in the front yard.
I'll make a motion.
And,
Wait a minute.
I thought you
and
stopped
then,
talking.
that's okay, and then applicant will comply with all representations it made during the course of the hearing, and then any other conditions in Mr. McLaren's report of October 21st.
Jim, you're up.
All right, I make a motion.
I'll second.
Mike.
Tom Collins,
You've got a property that's got a lot of things going against it, being on the corners, being in a flood zone. I think for what you were able to achieve, you're coming out with the highest and best use for what you've got, what you've been dealt to deal with. I see no negatives to the neighborhood. You're increasing from 4 to 9 feet on your setbacks. It's not what's required, but based on the lot size, I think it's more than adequate. It's almost doubling. You're making a flood compliant house, and I think you're gonna do a nice job with it, so I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski,
This application certainly points out the problem we've been aware of with this setback distance of properties to 200 feet in each direction. This is really extreme, and it does create a genuine hardship, which is one of the few real ones I think we've ever seen. I vote in favor.
Rich Patterson,
I'm thrilled it's a single going up there. I think that's a big plus. One family, less cars, less rooms. Other than that, I agree with what Mr. Wesleski said. I enthusiastically vote yes. Did that sound enthusiastic?
Mike Cristaldi,
We're losing another non-compliant. Mr. Galantine will be happy with that for our CRS. I see no negative on this thing whatsoever. 2 to 1, we're going to the good. I vote yes on it.
Jim Galantino,
The only hardship I see is the property across the street that you gotta live across where all the kids hang out when it rains, and they all come piling out of the house when they're flooded out and the couches are out in the lawn, and, welcome to the neighborhood. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty,
This is clearly a hardship case. We're getting a good new flood compliant home. We're decreasing density, and I vote in favor of the application.
Michael Richmond,
It's definitely a hardship. I'm gonna vote yes.
Application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
We just passed the house, we didn't see the drawings.
We didn't what?
We just passed the house, we didn't see the drawings.
Next case is Luke and Gwen B., 8701 Winchester Avenue, Block 316, Lot 20. Oh,
Recusing himself, never mind.
right. And so is Clem.
So I didn't-
Clem and Joe, Joe DiGirolamo, Clem Wesleski are recusing themselves. Case, what?
He lives right up the street. He's within the 200 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, I said he's recusing himself.
Oh, okay. That's
Michael?
Are you accusing of recusing?
We're going to start again. Luke and Gwen B., 8701 Winchester Avenue, Block 316, Lot 24, located in the S30 district, seeking C variance relief for front yard setback and possibly others, in order to expand the first floor porch and construct a second and third floor deck. Taxes and water payments are current, and proof of advertising and notifying have been satisfied. Mr. McLarnin?
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. The report is based on the application of Luke and Gwen B., 8701 Winchester Avenue, Block 316, Lot 24. It lies within the S30 single-family zone. Effective firm, elevation 15 to first floor. Deemed complete. Again, this could be considered somewhat of a hardship case because it is a corner lot and more leaning towards the C2 criteria, substantial benefit variance. Background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct an addition to expand an existing first floor deck, construct a second floor deck, and add a small third floor deck, all of which require variances. The property is located at the northwest corner of Osborne Avenue and Winchester Avenue, and as per our ordinance, there are 2 front yards and 2 side yards. Zoning chart is on page 1 and 2. Section 2 on page 3 indicates the documents reviewed to develop the report. Section 3 identifies the variances required, the first one being the front yard deck setback, whereas prevailing setback is 13.1 feet. 18.3 feet exists and 12 feet is proposed. Third floor decks, the second variance, third floor decks are not permitted at this location and one is proposed. No waivers have been requested. My comments are as follows. The source of the prevailing setbacks needs to be submitted and testified to. Osborne Avenue has a deep prevailing setback requirement based on the prevailing setbacks. Please testify to the proposed setbacks for the second floor deck and the third floor deck, that they're not clearly shown, but I just want to be on the record that they are not seeking a variance for those setbacks. Please provide evidence that the front yard landscape requirements are being met along Osborne Avenue. There's also a discrepancy between the architectural drawing and the survey showing the actual front yard setback of the building on Osborne Avenue and needs to be clarified. And does the building coverage reflect the discrepancy? Building coverage should not be an issue because it's not increasing the building. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Chris Balance, and I represent Gwen and Luke B., who are with us this evening, and they're the owners of 8701 Winchester Avenue. It's in the S30 zoning district. It's a corner property on Osborne and Winchester. Pete designed this house in the early 2000s when Luke and Gwen had kids and were living up in the Voorhees area. Kids are out now in college, out of the house. They are now taking advantage of the house they have here and have moved back here about 2017. But with that, they recognize that they have some space for some additional outdoor living space, and in order to accommodate that, what they are doing is the following. Expanding the first floor porch, which is on the Osborne Avenue side, approximately 6 feet. It will be set back 12.1 feet, where, 13? 12 is required, it'll be 13.1 if I'm not mistaken. Okay. 13.1, first floor, 12 at the second floor. The second floor will comply. Goody. All right, Pete's correcting me. 12-foot setback at the first floor, 13.1 at the second floor. So Roger, the second floor will comply. It's just a 1
Thought
point,
so, I just wanted to make sure.
you're right, 1.1 foot variance at the first floor. That's all.
And the third floor.
And the third floor deck, which is not permitted, that meets the setback requirements, and we will comply with the landscaping along Osborne. And there are no other variances with the application. Let Pete just kind of walk you through what he's done from the plan, and then we could wrap up.
Mr. Weiss, just state your name, business address, and I'll swear you in.
Peter Weiss, 101 North Washington Avenue, Margate.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Pete, you actually designed this house originally for the bees?
Yes.
And have prepared the plan for this evening and what's proposed with this application?
Yeah.
Would you kind of walk the board what you've designed and what is proposed?
Okay, so the original house had all the living space on the first floor, had a wraparound porch, which is 6 foot wide on both Osborne and Winchester. The second floor had the bedrooms on the left side and a family room on the right side. And the third floor had has a master bedroom on the left side and a loft space on the right side, so the right being the east side. So on each floor, there's some living space on the east side.
There's some common
And-
space?
Yes.
The decks are all accessed from an area of the house that's utilized by all?
Yes. So the bees have found that 6 foot on the first floor is maybe a little too narrow to do much with furniture and spending time on the deck, so they wish to expand it a little more than 6 feet, so that'll give them a little more than 12 foot along Osborne Avenue. The deck on the second floor is new because they wanted to cover the first floor deck and also wanted to create a deck on the second floor off the family room. The family room deck is about 21 by 9. Then also on the third floor, they wanted to cover the second floor deck, so we wanted to create a small deck on the third floor, which is roughly 6 by 14 feet.
Pete, both the second floor deck and the third floor deck are encompassed within roof structure, they're set in,
Yes,
and the second floor deck complies with the ordinance at 13.1 feet,
yes,
and the third floor deck also complies with the ordinance, I think it's 16 and change setback.
well, yes, it is, definitely.
Are there any other variances associated with the application?
Well, the setback on the first floor deck and the third floor deck.
Are there any other, aside from
No.
those two? Okay.
No.
I have a question, Pete. Same question as the prior case. Without the variance on the first floor deck, how wide would the deck be
11 feet,
without the variance?
Yes.
11 feet.
About 10, 10, or about 11, between
think
10,
it-
10 and 11?
And you're going for 12?
That's right.
Yeah,
1.1 foot, right, just a little over 1 foot.
One thing to keep in mind, this house is, pre-Sandy, it's fairly close to the ground, so the deck at the first level is, it's only up like 4 steps.
You can see from, I think, the pictures show the house next door is a 1.5-story house. So even the second floor deck and the third floor deck don't really impose on any outside living space, windows.
I understand, but just like Mr. Wesleski said before, the only benefit here, it's not like it's a 4-foot deck or the deck they have now, which is hardly usable. Without a variance, you still have an 11-foot deck. It's because I want it.
But on the flip side, we're still maintaining a 12-foot setback, which is still far greater than you have in most parts of the city.
I mean, that side of Osborne Avenue has 13.1 average setback. I mean, that's just
true.
greater than typical.
Most of the city, it's 5
I'm
to
not
10.
saying you have to change it. I'm bringing up a point.
Pete, when you look at this plan, do you see any detriment to the neighbors or the zone plan or the zoning ordinance?
No.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair. I don't have any more testimony. The bees are here, if anybody'd like to speak to them or ask questions.
I have a comment. Most of the third floor decks that, we're always talking about setting them back in the house. I think the pent roof really makes a difference. I think that really semi-compensates for that. It really makes it
Because you don't really have,
In that same vein, I think that really helps you on the third floor deck.
with the existing house, you don't really have the opportunity to push it into.
I
into the
understand,
house. That's-
I understand, and I think, you know, if you came in with, this is better than if you just came in with
Platform.
the flat door. I appreciate that. I think it really helps compensate for the fact that you couldn't push it in the
This,
house.
believe it or not, I mean, even at the 200 block, this gives you the, you'll be able to see the ocean from that,
Wow.
from that deck. It's fantastic.
This is, I didn't realize Peter had built it. I was going to congratulate the owners. I mean, I watched this house go up.
Nice house.
I was fascinated with it. It's a beautiful house.
Nice house and well-maintained.
It really stuck out when it first went up with the wraparound deck and everything.
What year did you build it?
Still voting no, but
Early 2000?
I like how it gives, it looks like two front yards, looks like two.
East Town Builders?
Exactly. It looks like two front yards. It's not flat on one side. You really did a nice job.
Eddie did.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Anyone from the audience have any questions or comments? Public portion is closed. If you would read the,
All right. If there's no other discussion, someone needs, any other discussion? You're going to do one vote, correct?
yes.
Motion for C variance relief for the following. Front yard setback to the deck, the first floor deck, of 12 feet, where 13.1 feet is required, and to permit a third floor deck where they're not permitted at this location. And the conditions will just be any representations that the applicant's made and anything in Mr. McLaren's report dated October 21.
Chris, can I see you after we're done?
Of course. Mr. McLaren, we will straighten out the discrepancy with the survey. There's two surveys. Danny Ponzio did one and Arthur did the other, so they're a little bit different. So we will give you
It
the,
looks like one goes to the first floor, and the other one should have gone to the second.
we'll give you the numbers, on the revised plan with the numbers.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Oh, go to Mike.
Tom Collins,
Very easy one tonight. Your house is magnificent. You have the right number of street trees. Your landscaping is outstanding. You should be a real tribute to your neighbors. I'm sure they're very pleased with you. What you're asking for is very de minimis. I see no impact on your property or the neighborhood. And the fact of the way you care for your property, I can only see that it's going to benefit the neighbors and the neighborhood. So I think you're really hitting all the right notes on that. So I vote in favor.
Rich Patterson,
Well, you've heard my opinion of your house before and after. I can't say if it was any other house, but in this case, I don't think you needed the variance. There's no benefit, whatever else, for the first floor deck, but it certainly cannot override what you've done with the house and everything else you're doing to the house. So I approve this application.
Michael Cristaldi,
As with the other board members, it's really a good-looking house. I live pretty close, and I admire the thing constantly. A wise old fireman once told me, oh, maybe he was just an old fireman. Did you ever try to put a 40-foot ladder up and get a guy out a window? I think these third-floor decks are the right thing to do, so I approve the application.
Jim Galantino,
I approve. I got a comment. That was a good application. Pete, nice house. You designed a nice house, and it's a flood compliant house, and those decks with the little cut out of the roof line hide that deck really well. I think that that really enhances the property. It is a shore house. I approve.
Margaret Gubernalty,
The variances requested are de minimis in nature. I see no detriment to our zoning plan or the ordinance. Really nice plan, and I vote in favor of the application.
Craig Palmisano,
Here's the fireman. And I'm a proponent of third-floor decks for safety reasons, for stepping outside, see what the weather's like in the morning, maybe seeing the ocean.
You wish you had one.
I wish I had one. But I approve it. I approve the application.
Michael Richmond,
Yeah, I think the aesthetics of the house and the design actually add to the neighborhood, and I'm going to approve it.
Application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
We can't.
Excuse me. What?
Chris?
Yeah, we're not done. We have business. No. Chris, we'll be about 5 minutes. You gonna be around? All right. Roger's gonna go over this land use liability booklet.
Oh,
You're not?
I think I can do that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's this, I think everyone has one, came up in another town. There's this booklet that the JIF, which is our joint insurance fund, they basically instructed us to distribute this to everybody, and that at our everyone should review it, and that at our next meeting, if you have any questions, I'm supposed to answer them. And then everyone has to basically sign off after that. So, you know, each board member should print their name and sign the enclosed training affidavit indicating that they've completed the prescribed training process. And that prescribed training process is to review this thing, and at the next meeting, ask me any questions that you might have about it. And then it says if anyone's not here, we'll just keep carrying it on to the next meeting until we cover everybody and we have everyone's signature, and it improves our coverage. Board members that complete the training process will be eligible for enhanced coverage. And the letter describes what that enhanced coverage is. So, read it between now, I don't even think we have a meeting next month.
December
so-
12th.
December 12th, so December 12th. If you have any questions, I'll answer them, and then, you know, we'll try and get one to Remy and the absent board members too.
If you want to give me one, Leo, I can scan it in and distribute it.
Okay, yeah, I have a bunch of extras. Or even if Palma sticks it in everyone's, the 3 or
Everyone
4
has-
people who aren't
everyone-
here.
oh.
Remy, Ron, and somebody else isn't here. Well, yeah, we'll circulate it, yeah.
Is that paper, is that, I didn't get the cover page.
The cover page only I have, but I can scan that to you too.
I have the cover page scanned.
Yeah, well, I'll get it.
Yep. So that's it for that. And then I think Roger had something.
Yeah, I'd like Roger to explain what we've talked about.
I just created a couple spreadsheets before I got here, just to throw out some ideas and throw out some direction where we're going, particularly in the building coverage. So if you look at the one sheet with the yellow check marks or the yellow boxes, I put the typical lot sizes based on square feet from 2,500 to 6,000 square feet. And as you're aware, if you're less than 3,000 square feet, you're allotted 40% building coverage right off the bat. If you're 6,000 square feet or more, you're reduced down to 30%. So the yellow indicates where we are today. If an application came in, those are the building coverages, allowances for that. Next column over, or next section over says 2 stories total. That gives you the total square footage of a house at that lot based on these lot coverages percentages. Second sheet gives you 2.5 stories, same thing. And as you can see, at the 40%, basically gives you an FAR, which is floor to area ratio of 1 for everything. Typically, you want to be, 1's permitted in the MF zone. CL City just passed an FAR, they increased their FAR from 0.8 to 0.85.
Longport's 0.8.
So I took our existing percentages and assigned a FAR to that. As you can see, it's like 30% 0.75 right off the bat throughout. 35% is 0.875, 40% is 1. So if I backtracked it where I used the factor of FAR,
Would you explain FAR for everybody?
FAR is floor to area
You
ratio.
add up all the floors?
You add up all the floors. To keep it simple, you add up all the floors and you divide it by the area of the lot.
I just don't know if everybody knows that.
Right.
I knew it. Right.
Sure you did.
Some towns have gotten away from FAR because it can become complicated. Some towns, they include the foyer area or a porch. I'm like, nah, just keep it simple. I don't think we should use FAR here, but I think we should contrast it to see where we are with building coverage.
We used to use it.
We still use it in MF zone. And that's something else I want to touch on too. But I guess my point is,
Tell me what are we changing? We're changing the sliding scale?
anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 square feet properties, there's a sliding scale.
Right, but what are you
Percentage-
proposing?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking for your guidance on that. I think 40% is too high. I think 30% is too low. I think 35% is a happy medium. You're going to get a smaller house on a smaller lot, but you're going to get a larger house on a larger lot, and they can support it. I think that's fair. The other idea is to, I know we
So that's
discussed-
what this is on the left-hand side, the 30, 35, 40. 35 is right in the middle, where 30 is too small and 40 is
Correct.
too high. And that's a 2.5-story house, that's the square footage you would get?
Total square footage, yes. And that's an
Is that
FAR
different than
value
what's
of,
this over on the other side?
That's if we took FAR factors of 0.8, 0.85, 0.9.
Oh, I see,
And
I see.
backtracked it, and that kind of gives you in line with where you are.
So
if you
you're
want.
saying on an S30 that right now, we allow 1,000 square feet?
Now, don't go by the S30, don't go by the residential zones. You have to go by the lot size, because our ordinance is actually,
2,500 foot lot, we allow 1,000 feet on the first floor of building coverage. So you're
and second floor, yes.
Right, and then if we went with the 35, then it'd be 875.
Right.
We give 40%
On lot sizes less than 3,000 square feet. you
Yeah,
get
it gets
40%.
smaller after that, right.
So you're kind of rewarded for having too small of a lot. That's why you see these big houses on small lots. I think we kind of want to get away from that, is my understanding.
It is, that's been a common, not only public comment, but common.
But 6,000 square foot lot up 2,100, but you would probably 2,500 down to 875, which is more reasonable.
It is.
Don't setbacks usually control over those smaller lots? More southern coverage?
There's so many small lots here that we give variance.
Yeah, you're always getting a side yard setback variance for a small lot. That's another thing that we kind of tossed around is for lot widths less than 40 feet. Not
That's
including
down to-
40 feet,
Go ahead.
is to just restrict it to 2 stories with the garage underneath. That's the only way you're going to satisfy parking is garage underneath. And that
Right,
seems to be
so
what.
no third floors if your lot, if it's an undersized lot, under 40 feet. If it's 49 feet and it's 50, it's different, but if it's an undersized lot under 40 feet, you can't go for the extra half story.
I guess my point is,
That's a good, I like that.
You have to come to the board? You still have to come before the board?
for.
If you want a third floor?
No, under 40, right now you have to come to the board regardless.
Oh, no, you would, yes.
If it's a developed lot already, you don't have to come in.
No, it's an undersized lot.
Undersized lot, under 40.
If he's building a new house on an undersized lot, he still has to come in.
I think anytime you have to come in.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is to get the massive houses off these tiny lots.
I understand, that's a good idea.
Tom, you were going to say something?
No, I'm in total agreement with that. I said, remember, years ago, I used to say that when we had a 40 by 60 lot, it was intended for a 24-foot high house.
Yeah.
Now we're
Yeah, exactly. It was all these bungalows,
Totally
which,
agree with
which
that.
Sandy forced us into, so we'll adapt to that.
before Sandy,
Yeah,
28.
right.
And just to reflect a little bit on that first case we had tonight, I'm glad the board commented on the roof pitch. I mean, I see Tom's point, but the idea behind that roof pitch is to pull those eaves down, so you don't have the 3 stories of mass.
Why wouldn't they have come in for a variance for the height?
You still have that mass.
Don't start that?
No, you
Okay.
can open the door.
Okay.
And
So anyhow, I'm just going through this.
Because it was a very unique lot. Because
I agree. I agree.
if it was
But-
up further, I wouldn't have said it.
My whole issue is with this half story is being abused. I think it's too massive. The intent of the ordinance, and it has to be rewritten by definition, is that half story is meant to be in the roof envelope for the second floor.
That was Roger's email that we got, that the house at Union and Winchester would not pass now, that he's interpreting, we're not changing the rule, he's interpreting it, the roof can only cover that 50%. Speaking of which, did anybody notice the house next door to Essex Avenue with 3 full floors on it?
I did, I noticed, the green one.
It gets dresses.
No, the new one being built, right?
The new one, it's got 3 full floors.
Yeah, the brand new one. Where, Shingles is? Beachfront? Yeah.
Aren't you only allowed the 2.5 floors?
I haven't been in it.
It's 2.5 stories. What happened is that third floor is open to the floor below. It's a huge thing inside.
I'm still waiting to see the roof. That's what we were
I
talking
get it,
about.
so.
They have
Well,
a,
that's what we're changing. Now, maybe this house was approved that way before this interpretation, but going forward, the interpretation is, like you said, you can't have the 2-story ceiling. The roof will cover the 50%.
right.
Is that a flat roof or is that?
No, they haven't put the roof on yet. You got,
What
looks
they
like
have,
4
they have a
stories.
bunch of 5-on-12 mini roofs on top.
Okay.
So it's gonna look like a flat roof, but it's not. It's like a,
Well, this is what I'm saying, why we're making these changes. We make a rule, and certain architects like to find ways around it.
Yeah, Peter.
He wishes he had that.
But that's, again, that's to prevent houses like that from now and the one at Winchester. You know, we've got to say, no, you can't, it was intended to have that thing down the middle. Not to have, the purpose wasn't floor area, the purpose was the massiveness of the house. And they're defeating the purpose with how they're doing it. Yeah. But they're getting away with it by just making it all open space.
all right, last but not least, so I think we're in agreement that 35% building coverage across the board looks pretty good for
Yes.
single-family zones. All right, so we have some tools there.
And lots less than 40 feet, no third floor.
Yes, yes.
That's a good start. Start.
Can I ask a question about why we have a multifamily zone anymore? Why do we need a multifamily zone? Pack more houses in, from Coolidge to Washington?
Because if you change that, you're gonna create a lot of non-conforming uses back in there.
Hill City.
Non-conforming lots, you got them all over.
Non-conforming lots. You say they're small?
Non-conforming uses.
25 foot?
No, they exist now.
No,
They
it
can-
duplex
Put
exists.
duplexes on 40-foot lots though, last month we put one on.
Some of these places have 4 or 5 units on them. You're gonna make them non-conforming by changing it in multifamily zone.
I know, but we're squeezing that 1 square mile with as many people as we can in multifamily. We're
Why-
just jamming everybody in there.
Well, that's only if
It's
we
always been
approve
that
the
way.
variances.
That's-
It's been that way because of the shacks that were there at one time. There's 3 shacks.
But as they come in, as we saw tonight, you have a 2-family unit being replaced by 1-family unit.
Beautiful, yes.
Because of the
Before
density
we had
issue.
One that went to 2,
But we voted yes. Why?
4 to 3.
Well, whatever. I mean, we have the opportunity to stop that.
Yes. And occasionally. not
And
all.
what I also propose, I know we discussed it before and Chris was here, is the multifamily zone, anything built in a multifamily zone should apply for multifamily zone standards. It should not say the chart to the left, because the only thing that changes is the lot width and building coverage percentage. Anything built in a multifamily zone, you're subject to multifamily zone standards.
So you can just change it.
Right.
Is that a recommendation?
Yes.
We had one that was on,
Well, anytime, it's like, what zone do you use? If it's a duplex, do you go to 2-family zone?
Family.
If it's a single-family zone, do you use S25, you use S30, you use S40?
The only caveat to that I would have is if using a single family would reduce it, then that's an incentive. I'd rather give them an incentive to get rid of the multifamily and go to the single family.
But to increase it, not to reduce it, you want to give them the opportunity to build.
But you already had that with the density
I'm
issue.
saying Reduce, if it's for 2 units, it's 3,000 square feet, and 1 unit is 2,500. It's not reducing each one.
No, that standard still stays. There is a density issue requirement in the multifamily zone, that's gonna remain. If you have less than 4,400 square feet, one unit.
While we're on that, and this has been my pitch for years, that three-block span, the presidents from, say, Wilson, Harding, and whatever is after that.
Benson.
You got the 3 blocks of those exactly the same duplexes. And you can't rebuild them because you're stuck with the density. You don't meet the density, don't meet 2,200 square feet per unit.
That's actually two families.
Those duplexes should be able to be rebuilt. An exception to the density standard should, because you'll get a bunch of really nice looking buildings. And you have just the square box with an unusually large front yard, those little tiny corner decks.
Rebuilt as two-family?
Yes, yes. For those existing duplexes, there should be an exception in that 3 block, because they're all exactly the same. And the ones that have been redone are gorgeous. Gorgeous, you can't even tell they're duplexes.
That's,
Because
Well, how did they get redone? What,
the elevator. They came in for variances and basically the pitch was,
Well,
duplex there now and going to a duplex.
well, you know what's killing that area? It's not the density, because that's a two-family zone, it's permitted.
Right.
The issue is the setbacks, the front yard setbacks.
and rear setback, they're
It's killing it.
sandwiched those.
they're short lots?
Because of the prevailing setback.
It's a major thoroughfare, and I understand it's a major thoroughfare in the restaurant area, and that could be really pretty. It could be a really nice looking causeway into, into the Bay Area.
The second one off of Harding looks really good.
Yours?
No, second one.
Harding in the
Yes,
first.
yes.
The second one.
Yes,
So
yeah.
if we
What would,
Doing that, how would you word it, or?
It would simply be that there's an exception to the density standard of 2,200. If you have an existing duplex within that overlay zone, for instance.
Right.
You can rebuild that duplex under the applicable zoning.
With the same footprint, you mean, or?
No, whatever the required setbacks are.
Oh, okay.
Whatever
Just the 2,200 square feet?
The minimum lot size in a TF zone is 3,200 square feet, and I think most of those lots meet it.
Okay.
But it's
But
not
then
subject,
we don't meet the density standard. You don't meet the square footage per unit standard.
there is a density standard for the TF.
A lot of them are 50 by 60,
Not a lot.
a lot of them.
A lot?
Mike's familiar with that area.
Slumlord.
He didn't pay me for this.
We can look at the lot area on that.
They just don't turn over, and they should.
Right.
I think the setback issue is killing it because it reduces that footprint.
Okay.
Well, what can we do about it? Can we create an overlay zone and?
Yeah, you can do a 7-foot front yard setback right now, we're like 12, 15 feet,
Every
something like that.
place in Margate doesn't have to have the same size front yard setback, because everybody's unique.
You guys aren't in the microphone.
That's a.
They're all in line right now.
Yeah.
So you could just say the prevailing for those blocks is 4 feet or
Right.
whatever it is, and that's what it is, period.
Right, bring them all out to 5 feet, whatever it may be.
Well, hence the other,
I'm just saying, it's an opportunity to make that area really nice.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Me too.
is I just started toying around with the idea of
Thank you.
getting rid of these prevailing setbacks for front yards. I think it's ridiculous. It's a pain, it changes every day, changes every minute,
Changes every variance.
changes every variance. So there's two ways we can do this. One is, attach it to a zone, or attach it to a block, street block. And I think it's more laborious, but I think it's more practical to,
I do too, but I asked you this before, I don't remember the answer. How do you do that block by block? Survey?
we'd have to hire some kids from Rutgers to go around with measuring sticks.
To do setbacks of everybody and,
I would say whatever the mean or the median setback is, round it up, round it down, or we can assign it. What I don't want to do is assign a setback that's further out than everybody else.
It used to be in the old zoning that the prevailing setback was the majority of the street. So if everybody was built like in those duplexes out, that was a setback, period. Okay?
that's what it is.
Same thing when I did on Douglas Avenue, when I first went in there, our setback, even on our commercial building, was, everybody was at the sidewalk, so ours deferred right to that.
So I do have another
So you can
spreadsheet that I
do
didn't
that,
print out, but
But Roger, just real quick, you have places like Bayshore Drive where you're gonna take according to this, and some of them have 50-foot front setbacks, and then you're gonna say, okay, you can go to 20. Man, that was a problem years ago when people would come in and try to move up.
It took me about 2 minutes to do this. I'm just throwing numbers in there just to make.
Well, I'm just saying, so you really can't go by this zone, the S40, the S.
Well, the
it's on-
S60 WF zone, it may be 50. I don't know. I don't have any
No,
numbers to
I'm-
work
what
with.
If we
saying
go
is-
area
is
by area, though,
we
you
should-
take care of that
We should
problem.
do a study on this, even if we all went out with tape measures and checked it ourselves.
That's the alternative, he
I
said,
can
is
show
do
you how to
it,
use a tape
do-
measure.
yeah, do it block by block or, area by area, so you're not screwing one area over the other.
I think the 5-foot minimum in some areas, it doesn't work. I think it's gonna be greater than that.
Would you,
Right, I
just,
agree.
you just started that. Can we bring that up next?
Yep.
Work on that? Another thing, could you get working on that tree variance? I know of a couple properties coming up where they're gonna be taking down some really big trees, which are probably too late, but can we get a kickstart on that about forcing everyone to put giant trees in their hand? That's how he interpreted what I said. This is just stopping people
I
from
think we
chopping
can
down,
get
the
one-
builders to just drop.
Went in
chop-
sooner just to stop that from happening, but I think that whole package that was given to me, that's a big lift.
I understand, but the tree thing, can something happen on that without the rest of it? That's,
Rich, just because a couple are coming in, you can't rush things through. We should do
no,
a
it's too
thorough
late.
job.
I'm saying it's too late for them.
Right, so why rush it then?
For the next ones that are coming through the following time. Why rush it? It's been going on for 3 years or 4 years and nothing's happened, so we're rushing it now. That's why.
What do you do there? If you have a big, Rich, if you have a big tree in the middle of a 40-foot lot,
You take it down.
okay?
All you have to do is say, you come in, get a permit and say it's blocking where the house is going and you take it down. But if you take right by you, Thurlow and Amherst Avenue, those 5 giant elm trees they just took down, for no reason. They were on the curb, that didn't affect anything. Right by Cristaldi, there was a house that did the same
They
thing.
said that they were diseased.
These giant trees that they're just taking down.
They were not diseased.
That's why I was asking.
Disease in the way, whatever, we'll go look at it and say, take it down. And there'll be penalties of replacing the trees or substantial fines depending on the size of the tree. I mean, that's all
The
part of it.
carnival lights on that they did on that house, in the roof eave?
Where?
got a picture of
It's unbelievable.
Yes, yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm thinking they're on the boardwalk.
The lighthouse.
It's crazy.
The Berettas can't even sleep.
It's
No,
obnoxious.
they can't even sleep. It's like
Show
daylight
me.
in their bedroom.
What?
It's on
Like there's 150.
Thurlow and Amherst Avenue, the White House. He's got LED lights up in the side.
Every 18 inches in the soft, it's crazy.
Really?
It's like
What street's it
Berettas
on?
live right behind him there.
Yeah, it is great.
It's like
It's
daylight.
like-
What street's it on?
Thurlow and
What's that?
Amherst?
What street?
Thurlow and
The
Amherst.
brand new big house.
Oh, yeah, that's the house with the trees.
Yeah.
One other thing Craig was talking about, but it's already the rule, that when they're putting 15 feet in front of a driveway, they need a variance. That house on Thurlow Avenue has 15 feet, and they shouldn't get a CO. The building on the bay, on the drawings, on the pictures, it had the garage set in. They did not put the garage in, it's only 15 feet.
Finishing it now.
But the drawings, the
Jimmy talked
plans
about
had it set in.
We'll make sure they work it out.
Yeah.
On the blueprints.
Had the 3 feet set into the garage?
Yeah, just like we did tonight, and it doesn't take anything out.
But Rich, if you call up the building department, he has to go out and write him a citation. Fine him. So just call up the building
I
department.
thought
As a
there was
citizen.
some in the ordinance.
He doesn't listen to me
Some in the
anymore.
ordinance? Says you have to have a space in front of a garage?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's already in there.
Yeah,
And they had plans that showed it. They just didn't build it that way.
that's a problem.
but they were told before it was done, too. It just,
Still did it.
We're doing a motion to adjourn.
yeah, no, we're done.
I'll make that one.
Okay, Jim, you okay with that?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. Palmer, you did a fantastic job.
Thank
Let's
you.
give Palmer a hand.
I'm the only one to yell at.
Thank you.